Anything could happen. It's Bridget O'Neill, everybody! Okay, so I was 19 years old, and I had just gone back to my hometown in Pennsylvania because it was my first year away from Pennsylvania going to college. So basically, I was home, and my best friend Julie said, "Hey, let's go out, let's go hang out." And I said, "Okay, great." I got ready, and I stole a couple of Schmidt's beers from my dad's fridge. It's very Philadelphia. And so I did that, and so we got into the car, and we went directly to the graveyard, because as a goth, that's what you do, and so that's what we did. And so we were like, old times, high school. So we went there, and we took our beers, and we went to the graveyard, and we started drinking, but we didn't have a group with us. We're like, this is kind of lame. So we said, why don't we just get back in the car and go look for some friends. So we get back in the car, and at this point, we're going to go to like 2 local hangouts, which were, they were 7-Eleven or Wawa. So we chose Wawa because some of the, cooler punk kids hung out at Wawa, not 7-Eleven. So we got in the car and we started driving. And like the town that I'm from is at 12 o'clock, the traffic lights turn into just yellow lights. So you can tell it's a very progressive town. And so we start driving, and we proceeded with caution, or whatever you do at a yellow light. And so we did that, and then we whoop, whoop, and we get pulled over. Story of my life in high school. So just like another common day again. So I'm just like, God, this is like old times. So we get pulled over, and to make a long story short, the cop takes us in because we weren't drunk. We only had like a can of Schmidt's, but I had 2 more cans in the car. And so the cop says, "Okay, you've got 2 cans, and he takes us in, and he books us, and we go to jail. And like, this is ridiculous, but it's Pennsylvania. So so we're in jail, and we have to like pay a fine. Our license is taken away for like 3 months or whatever it is, and then you have to take a mandatory AA class. And it's supposed to be like a light kind of AA class, like, oh, I was driving and I had a beer and I went to AA class, and let's, you do it on the weekend, it's over with. Okay. But, however, me and my friend Julie, we had to go back to our college towns, which were both out of state. So my dad had said to the cop, well, we need to speed this up because they got to go back. So, okay. So he says, I got an idea. There's not the typical like driving AA class, but there's a substance abuse class, and we'll put her in that. So that's where we go. And let me just give you a visual. My dad drops us off because I didn't have a license, and at the township house or whatever it is. And so we're there, and so I pretty much look like a female Andy Warhol with a cross of, if you cross that with like the flock of seagulls, and like that anemic look with the big swoosh of a hair. And then my friend Julie, who's like super preppy, she looks like she just hopped out of like the L.L. Bean catalog. And now we're walking into the township house, and it's like all these dudes with like mustaches and like mullets, not in an ironic way at all, because it's like 1989, and they pretty much look like the shop guys in my high school, but like only older. And they're like chain smoking and drinking coffee and shit like that. So I'm like, oh my God, we are so not gonna make friends in this class. So I'm kind of like freaking out. So we get into the class, and we definitely get these looks, and no one's liking us, and we're like, oh my God, this is like really nerve-wracking. So we get into class, and the host, who's about 65 years old, and she's very haggard, and she is, well, I guess she's an ex-alcoholic, but she's got like this smoky voice, and she's like, okay, so this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna get up, and you're gonna say your name, and you're gonna say why you're here. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I'm like prepping. So the first guy gets up, and he's like, yeah, he's one of the mustache mullet guys. And he gets up, and he says, yeah, I live with my mom. And he was like about 35, which was old to me when I was 19. But anyway, so he's like, I was out at the bar, and it closed, and I got home to my mom's house because I live with my mom, and I was like taking a piss behind the TV. And I was like, oh my God. And then he's like, and then one night I came home and I was taking a piss behind, I thought it was the bathroom, but I walked into my mom's bedroom and I was pissing all over the bedroom. And I was like, ew. And so then I'm like, oh my God, okay. And I'm just remembering why I'm there. And then I guess the hostess, the 65-year-old like haggard smoky lady, got like really amped up and she's like, well, that's nothing. One time when I would come home from the hospital and I didn't have the beer store was closed and there was nothing in the house, I'd take my needle and I'd shoot up on Aqua Velvet. And I was like, oh my God, Aqua Velvet. Like, I mean, this is like old school shit. So I'm like, okay. And then there's like this scrawny, like strung out hippie guy, and he has a pad and a paper, and he leans in, he's like, oh yeah, could you explain to me how do you not get an air bubble when y'all shooting up on Aqua Velvet? And I'm like, oh shit. And I thought she was gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna answer that. She's like, I'll tell you. What you do is, and you tap it. And I was like, oh shit. So then pretty much like all of the stories are like as colorful as this, and they're only getting more and more colorful. And all of a sudden it's approaching my turn to stand up and say why I'm there. And again, I have to say this one more time, it's not the typical AA class. It's like substance abuse. It's pretty serious stuff. And so I've heard some pretty serious stories in this class. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So Julie, my best friend Julie, starts looking at me and I can just see her pleading. Her eyes are just pleading like, oh my God, Bridge, fucking whip out those stories about X and acid and Quaaludes. Like, fucking tell a story and throw me in it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking the same thing. And I'm like, I'm kind of thinking that. So anyway, they get to me and I'm like, fuck. And I'm the last person. I'm the last person because I chose the exit, you know, by the door to get the fuck out of there. So I'm the finale. And so I stand up and I say, hello, my name is Bridget. And these guys look so fucking annoyed with me. They're like, ugh. And I go, I'm here because I got busted and I got thrown in jail. And all of a sudden they start looking at me with like respect. I'm like, yeah. And for possession. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, maybe this girl has a story. But then I pause. I'm like, okay, whip out some of these stories. What do I do? And then all of a sudden the host says, and I'm just paused and I just don't know what to do. I'm kind of conflicted. Like, do I tell the truth? Do I go with one of these stories? She's like, Bridget, possession for what? And I say, a couple of Schmitz beer tall boys that I stole from my dad's refrigerator. That's it. They were disgusted with me.